Good morning, people, and welcome back to the Blues feed. We have a different style of episode for you today where we're going to be reacting to the fast paced transfer of Xavi Simons to Chelsea. Before we get into it, just want to remind you all of the 1K subscriber giveaway we've got going on at the minute. Make sure you're all liking, subscribing, and commenting on any of our videos, and you'll automatically enter into the draw for a 25-26 Chelsea jersey once we hit 1,000 YouTube subscribers. Danny, on to today. We are going to talk about Xavi Simons in a different style video than usual. What's your thoughts? The transfer seems to be gathering pace, and yeah, give us your overall thoughts and sort of a rating out of 10, and where you sort of see this transfer for Chelsea.
Mate, I'm absolutely buzzing. I think he's a player that I've wanted for a long time. I suggested last summer when he moved to Leipzig on a permanent deal that is something we should get involved with. I think it's a signing again we spoke about in June that I think we should get involved with. He's a player that fits that left 10 hybrid role that we want very, very well. We can drift inside, which we can go on to in a bit. I think it's a signing that could really push us forward into the next level. I would give it 7 or an 8 out of 10, with my only concern being the physicality. That would literally be it. But he's shown that he can handle himself in the Bundesliga and in France, so I'm not too concerned. How about yourself?
Yeah, yeah, I'm on the same lines as you. To be honest, mate, I think he's in isolation, he's a superb footballer. Before we even delve into where he fits with us, I think he's incredibly talented. I think he's perfect for this sort of left wing 10 hybrid role that we keep talking about, and I feel like he brings something that we don't have. I feel like he's so nimble with the way that he carries the ball. I feel like the way he picks up pockets of space is just different to somebody like Cole Palmer, who picks up space, but the way Palmer does it, he sort of knows what he's doing when he's going to turn already. Where Simmons seems a little bit more off the cuff, but in a sort of controlled manner. And I just like the fact that you don't know what he's going to do when he gets the ball, and that I mean that in the most positive way possible. I don't mean it in terms of he's going to lose it or anything along those lines. I mean he's going to get the ball and he can literally do anything with it. He could turn and shoot from 30 yards. He could turn and play a pass. He might carry the ball, and I just think generally he is sort of a missing profile for our squad in the attacking areas, to be honest. And yeah, similar to yourself, probably a 7.5 out of 10, with the only real concern being his sort of frame and how he would cope in a more physical game. But that's the beauty of the squad we're building, is that you can play players in certain games, and if you feel like they need to miss out a game for a physicality reason or whatever it may be, then you've got that option as well. So yeah, I like the fit, I like the player, and I think it's a really good signing. And it's always good if he's going to reject Arsenal to join us. So
Yeah, absolutely. The geezer knows that London's blue before he even joins. It's a good signing. I have to say, it's probably been a little while since we've had a small baller as well, like a Juan Mata or a Hazard, or that small, nimble, low center of gravity type player that can just do anything at any point. Um,
yeah, do you know, he does remind me a little bit of like a combination of sort of Hazard and Mata. Not
yeah,
in
I
terms of
agree.
his ability yet, but I feel like the abilities and the traits that he carries are very sort of hybrid of those two players, even with a little bit of Oscar sprinkled in as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I think it's sort of it's a bit of a nostalgic one in a way, just the way that he plays and the way that he's hopefully going to fit into the team.
I agree.
Um,
He's not to that level yet, but like he has the dribbling ability or like similarities to like an Eden Hazard, where he can drift past 3, 4 players. But then he also has the kind of passing IQ of like a Juan Mata, where I mean the amount of times he does the outside of the foot Travella type pass in behind from that left half space or out wide. It's just fantastic. I think he's going to create a lot of chances. He's going to attract a lot of attention from other people. I think we spoke on the podcast a couple of episodes ago. We're building a squad now where it's not just Cole Palmer FC. You're going to have to pick up a Xavi Simons. You're going to have to give Esteval attention. You're going to have to give João Pedro attention. You just can't leave them alone, because if you do, they'll punish you. And I think it's only going to make Cole Palmer more important, like more impactful, and also just us better as an overall attack as well. I think he's a signing that I can't see anybody being against, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I think we saw it in the Club World Cup. To be honest, that when João Pedro came in, you had Neto was playing really well. In the final, we obviously had Cole Palmer on the right. The difference between the Club World Cup and the league last season is that Palmer seemed to have a little bit more freedom. And I know a lot of us, myself included, were talking about maybe it's Maresca's system that was nullifying him. But I do think also he was sort of an enemy of his own sort of abilities, really, Palmer, because he had such a good first season that then he was moved centrally. So A, he's already easier to pick up centrally than he is wide. But B, most teams were putting two players on him. So when you've got two
100%.
players on him and he's central, you're going to nullify some of his abilities. Now that we've seen him sort of move back out to the right, and then people have got João Pedro to worry about, you've got Pedro Neto to worry about, you've also got Enzo Fernandez crashing the box a lot. So that's automatically freed up Palmer. And like you say, only having Xavi Simons added to that will free Palmer up more and will allow him more space, and vice versa, because some teams will still double up on Palmer, which will allow Simmons to thrive or Pedro
Absolutely.
to thrive. So we're going to cause teams issues with having different profile of players that ultimately all like to do similar things in a way as well. It's like for João Pedro, for example, he likes to pick up a pocket of space, but he'll also happily run in behind or run a channel. And Palmer will come into the 10, or he'll pull out wide, or he'll pull into a pocket of space and start the play. And I think that having those players that can do different bits, but ultimately they all want to get involved and score goals and get assists, is just going to be an absolute nightmare for teams to defend against, even in a low block.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think it's all about attracting attention and creating those overloads. Because if Palmer is taking up 1 to 2 people in the middle, well, then on the left-hand side where Simmons is, he can't they can't give two to him, because then that would be giving Esteban on the right or Neto or whoever to more space, and then that's when you correct those overloads, and that's when you can hurt teams. Whereas before you could kind of leave Sancho a little bit alone, because if he did get the ball, he was very stop start. He wasn't kind of attacking space as quickly as a lot of people would like, whereas all these people will. So you're going to have a striker where you can't just give one centre back his attention, because he's going to finish if he gets a sniff in João Pedro or Delap, whereas Jackson was very wasteful. So yeah, I think we're creating a team that everybody's scared of all the people that they're defending against, which is exactly what we need. For me as well, one thing the Simmons signing would would allow to happen, which we'll go on to the shape in a little bit, but I think it would allow Enzo Fernandez to kind of play a little bit deeper when Simmons is in the side and dictate the play and become that metronome that we saw when he first joined Chelsea, when he was playing as a six. He can still drift forward and come into attacks as well, but you can have him dictate and run midfields, which is another thing that we haven't quite been able to see since Maresca came in. So yeah, I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah, I agree. Considering we only did our first podcast of the week yesterday, and obviously we're reacting today, this has sped up a lot in the meantime in sort of the last 24 hours. Why do you think that is?
I think ultimately Chelsea probably wanted to look at this profile once they'd sold Felix and Nkunku, even a Jackson, just to kind of free up the space. But I think with other teams circling, like Arsenal interested, etc., Bayern Munich and people like that, I think Chelsea are probably like, well, let's not miss out. This is a key target. Let's go for him. They probably realised as well that Morgan Rogers is going to be 90 to 100 billion. So they've gone, do you know what? We're not going to be able to go and get that done. Let's go and get Xavi Simons, who's equally as good a player, in my opinion, and fits what they want to do. So I think they've just decided, let's not miss out on a target. They've got player buy-in, and let's get it done.
Yeah, whisper it quietly, but I'm really happy with the way we're doing our business this summer. I feel like it's changed. I feel like something's changed within the sort of signing and transfer process, that now we're biding our time. We're waiting to take an opportunity. We know what players we want. If we have to speed up for a move, we will. But if we don't need to, then we'll take our time. We'll try and get a few outgoings gone. And I think that the way that it's coming across now is really calculated, and I like it. And I think it's nice. It's nice to see. What do you think on sort of the way we're doing our business? And can you feel a bit of a change within the structure?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're being more specific in who they want, and if they want them, they're going for them. And also, I think they're learning. I mean, everybody at Chelsea is inexperienced, and they're learning on what they need to do and how they need to do it. We're not getting these drawn out transfer sagas that we had last year and the year before. So, yeah, I think the strategy is identify the player, get the player buy-in. If they don't get the player buy-in, they move on. And then if they start speaking to the club, and if the club has and Chelsea have a similar kind of valuation on the player, then they go and get it done. Obviously, there has to be flexibility in that, but they probably value Morgan Rogers at 70, 65, 70 million, and Aston Villa want 90, 100 million. They go, okay, there's no value in that deal here. We'll move on to a different target.
Yeah. And the thing with Simmons that I like his numbers, and something we're going to come on to now is sort of the sort of statistical side of Xavi Simons and the way that his numbers translate into data, really. And I think last season he had 17 goal involvements in the league in 25 appearances. He had an injury that kept him out for about 15 games across all competitions, which is the first injury of his career at 23. So there's not a real issue there, and he did come back towards the end of the season. He's already started pre-season and been playing for Leipzig, so that's a positive sign. He's averaging around a goal involvement every other game in terms of minutes per goal involvement, which is good enough
Yeah,
for
it's
the level
about
he is.
1.5 games. It's
Yeah,
perfect. Like 126 goal in 26 minutes per in goal involvement in a very poor RB Leipzig
yeah,
side last year. They finished seventh. They scored something like 25 less goals than they did the year before, due to manager issues and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think he did very well in a poor side, and when he did come back from his injury, he he didn't miss a beat. He was straight back in, and
yeah.
and I think that's a positive
Well,
sign.
he
So,
was involved in a third of their league goals, which for any club in that sort of level is incredible numbers.
I mean, only Cole Palmer would have been close to that last year for Chelsea. Maybe Enzo Fernandez with his amount of assists, but they'd be the only two that would have been that heavy on goal involvements.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to sort of the numbers that you can see on screen now, let's sort of dissect it a little bit, Danny. So the sort of overall stats, which is a combination of different things, he's in the top sort of 25 to 30% for goals per 90 across Europe's top five leagues. In the nearly top 20% for non-penalty goals, in the top 15% for progressive passes. His shot creating numbers are excellent. He draws fouls really well. Um, and overall, his numbers are so impressive, Danny. But I know you wanted to delve into something that he doesn't get spoken about too much, and more of his sort of his passing, his work rate, and his defensive numbers that are something that have impressed you when doing a little bit of research.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see it on the screen in the bottom left there that his passing stats, I mean, most of them are in the top 15 to 20% in all of them, bar a couple. And most of the ones that are a bit lower, like pass completion short, it's because he's trying to break the lines. He's trying to create that pass. He's trying to make those risky passes all the time. So he's going to create chances for fun with the amount of movement we're going to get within our attack now that we saw at the Club World Cup, and we're only going to build on with the extra profiles that are coming in, like Esteval, like Gittins, like Xavi Simons. I think he's going to be it's gonna we're gonna create magic at the end of the day, aren't we? We're gonna be creating movies every week. Um, and then from a defensive side of things, he works hard. He's gonna press, which obviously Maresca likes. He makes tackles. He blocks shots. He makes clearances. Um, so he's not going to be like a Rafael where he's unbelievable going forward, but he's lazy off the ball. He's going to work hard for the team, which is fantastic.
Yeah, bearing in mind that we wasn't our best for the majority of last season, especially in an attacking sense. We didn't really turn teams over too often. The one number that really stands out to me on this is in the bottom left corner. It's the passes into a penalty area.
Yep.
He's in the top 7% of players in Europe of passing into a penalty area,
Hmm.
which is just crazy numbers. And when we were already pretty high in sort of league standings for chances created and XG and bits like that without actually really taking it. His XG over performance he's basically he's overperformed by 0.15 in his XG and his non-penalty XG, which is great. It means that he's a good finisher, which is something that you like to see. Yeah, it really stands us in good stead. Sort of, but before we close on this reaction video, Danny, we wanted to talk a little bit about the shape and how we
Hmm.
feel like he could line up, where we think we're going to see him in this sort of new look Chelsea attack that's been refurbished over the summer, if you like. So
Yeah.
on screen in a sec, you're going to see um, a couple of different lineup charts where you'll see sort of an in possession structure and an out of possession structure. And
Hmm.
Danny and I just want to dissect that a little bit and just
Absolutely, and
show you where
just
we
before
see.
we go into that, just to highlight two stats that I want to then pick up in the next slide as well is his passes completed long, has passes attempted long, and as well as his progressive passes as well. So you'll now see on the screen kind of the out of possession and the in possession. So we've put it as Simmons starting as that 10 and Palmer starting just off that right side. I think one thing that we lacked quite a lot last year was progressive carries within that central area because Palmer's very good at picking up the ball and turning and passing the ball on, but he doesn't kind of drive and run at defenses that often. And with Simmons being so high in kind of nearly 6 progressive passes per game, trying to thread the lines, and then also nearly 7 long passes attempted a game and very accurate there as well. You can see a Simmons on that left half space making that switch over to Reece James or in behind the defence of João Pedro into João Pedro in this example, which is just going to unlock a different dynamic that we didn't have last year.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know about you, mate, but this is exciting me just looking at these potential lineups and the way that it could unfold. I think Pedro Neto's proved his worth on either flank, and for me, it Gitten's going to have to rival him. I think that left wing
Hmm.
spot is between those two, really. Because what I like is, for my personal preference, I like that sort of pacey, direct left winger. And I like the fact that on the right we can have somebody who can sort of invert into that 10 or right 10 space, if you like, and allow whether it's James or Gusto to overlap on the right hand side. And I
Yep.
think with the profile of players we have, it makes us a more balanced unit because whether it's Palmer there or maybe it's Esteval there and Palmer's in the middle, I think they both want to pick up them sort of inside wing slash right 10 spaces that they can really be progressive with and create from, and it allows Reece or Gusto to overlap. It also allows the central 10 to sort of drift out slightly to the left, sort of the way you saw Palmer against Benfica,
Hmm.
or you see Enzo Fernandez pick up them positions sometimes when Romeo Lavia plays. And then you've got that left winger who's going to be really wide, sort of chalk on their boots, touchline winger who can be pacey, can be direct. And I think that's what you've got the Neto and the Gittins profiles for. And I just think it's that in possession lineup looks so balanced to me. You've got Trevor and Cucurella, who are both brilliant at defending the channels if we get transitioned. Obviously, you've got Caicedo's pace and just defensive instincts there if that was to happen. I like it. I don't, apart from the goalkeeper, I don't see any holes in that lineup. And then
I
if you
agree.
if you if you think as far as like rotational aspects. You got Gusto can come in for James, Esteval for Palmer, Delap for Pedro, Gittins for Neto, Simmons. You've got Palmer who can go in there, or you've got Esteval who can go in the 10, or you've got Fernandez who can go there if Lavia comes in. Like there are so many
Yep.
different options and so many different ways we can line up, and I think
And
this is the structure we're going to see.
even in defence, like having Fafana when he's fit, he can defend that right side wide space very, very well. You've got, I mean, even a Tossing could come in and play in that position, even if it was in the central one for Colwell. If you're going to kind of move Cucurella on and you kind of bring James into that right centre back spot. You've also got within this exact structure that you see there, if a transition happens and you want to kind of change how it does, Palmer can drift wide, Simmons can drift wide, right half space, Fernandez can push up into the left half space, Cucurella can invert into that 6, and James can come into that right centre back spot. So even within this exact structure, how we put it in there, within the game, you're going to see fluidity and you can see how people change, which is just going to make us so difficult to defend, but also so difficult to set up against because you don't know what we're going to do. And that's one thing that we spoke about after on our Club World Cup pod, the being comfortable with being uncomfortable and the fluidity both in defense and within attack. You can see this exact team setting up in 5 6 different ways just within that shape, which is going to be a nightmare for a manager to
Yeah,
prepare against, because all of a sudden we do something slightly different and we're 15 25 minutes into a game, we're 1-0 up before a manager can make any adjustments, or we get to half time before they can do it, and then Maresca has the ability and has the idea of changing something at half time, and all of a sudden they're scrambling around again. The one thing that I was very critical of Maresca is he came a little bit predictable in the season last year, which is when we were struggling, but he's shown that he can be adaptable within the Club World Cup. So I'm very excited to see how that goes. Last thing I was just going to say to you before we wrap up this, mate, is with this signing, with the squad that we've got, I know you mentioned outside of goalkeeper, you can't see a hole in this. Where would you rank the Simons signing in out of where would this raise the level to be? We were saying yesterday, third, second, to kind of third, fourth, second is where I think. Do you think this signing can make us challenge for the league?
yeah. I think yesterday I mentioned that we could. I think we could challenge up to sort of February, March time, and I think this at least gets us to challenging pretty much the whole way through. That I think, depending on injuries, of course, and depending on other cup runs, and maybe if we went deep in the Champions League, our focus might turn away from the league. But generally, if you're saying this is the 11 plus the rotational players we've spoken about, I don't see a way where we don't challenge that top three for the full season. And I feel
Yeah,
like we're definitely going to push Arsenal for third, because I know a lot of people see Arsenal finishing top two. I don't. I
I
think
don't.
City. I think City and Liverpool are going to be the top two unless we can break into that.
Yeah,
And I think we really, really push Arsenal for third, and maybe even and trump them and challenge all the way, because I don't think Liverpool will be as far as ahead this season. I
no,
think it's going
I
to be
agree.
very tight, and I can't see it being more than maybe 10 points maximum between first and fourth. So I think we can challenge all the way, and if we can get a goalkeeper sorted, that'll just strengthen my view on that.
I think with this signing, it puts us above Arsenal. I think if you look at that side there, bar maybe like a couple of the centre backs, and Saka, I'm not quite sure who else kind of
Yeah,
fits
we
into
we
this
just have
side.
to we've got to transfer it to on the pitch now.
Hmm.
Like we said yesterday, it's those games against the Arsenals, the Cities, the Liverpools that we've really got to step up and show what we are now, like we did
Yep.
against PSG. But yeah, this was a quicker video than usual, purely based on the reaction to Xavi Simons to Chelsea, which is maybe by the time we record, Danny, the next record, Xavi Simons will be a Chelsea player. So yeah,
Certainly could be.
let's wrap it there. We hope you all enjoyed this newer form of content, and that we'll bring more of these when anything like this happens in the future. Thank you all for
Yep.
listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers, guys.